have usually been on here, and it's a different day. So happy Saturday, wherever you are. Go ahead and from Montreal, good morning. Let me know where you're from, and if you've been here before. Now, this is a different time than we're used to being here. If you've been to my group and ours before, but sometimes it's good to mix it up, and it just kind of ended up working out that way. So I appreciate you guys being flexible. I try to be on here as regularly as possible on a schedule, but sometimes you just gotta mix it up a little bit. Maryland, Massachusetts, from Utah. Yeah, anybody out west in the United States, it is very, very early on a Saturday. Commend you for getting up. Morning from you, from NYC, from UK, from London. Awesome. The cool thing about doing this at this time is that it really has a lot more access to people in all different time zones. So, as you'll see, I'll go over this, but I'm from North Carolina in the United States, and it's 8 a.m. here, which is not too early, but on a Saturday, it's still a little early. From Germany, from London, from Florida, Austria, so, as you can see, there are lots of people from lots of different places, and that is my absolute favorite thing about BetterHelp in general, and then also about these group webinars is that we are a global community. So, it's really, really cool to be able to connect with people from all over the world, and that has been something that I have found just so great and so interesting, and looking at self-care in different ways. And there's definitely different things that people practice, different ways people practice self-care, but also it really is a global concept, like, so it's something that everybody kind of needs in their life, and everybody's looking at building and practicing. So it's really neat how universal that is. Awesome. 40 miles. Okay, from New York, and then somebody else is from New York. So this is a little, like I said, a little different than my normal typical schedule. Lots of group webinars ran different ways. I try to keep mine in a very consistent schedule. It's usually on Wednesdays, but sometimes things are gotta switch it up just a little bit. So I'm glad I could come here at a different time. But I run a group webinar called Self Care 101, and cover different aspects of self care, but they're all grounded in the basics of self care. So if you've never been to one of my other group webinars, every group webinar is standalone. So if you've never been to one of my other ones, it's completely fine. But there's a series which I'll talk about in a little bit. We go through different types of self care or different kind of concepts about self care. And today we're going to talk about physical self care. So if you were hanging in with me actually, I think I skipped a little bit, but last time I was on here, we talked about emotional self care. And so the idea is that, sometimes I think self care gets put into a box that says this is all about our mental health. And I'm a therapist. Self care is a great, great tool to help with our mental health. But if we can just remember that self care applies to all parts of our health, it helps us to kind of expand that and look for other ways that we're practicing self care, which will impact our mental health very positively. But sometimes it's nice to remind ourselves that there's other little ways that we can take care of ourselves than just maybe what we think about from what's trendy or what we've heard a lot about self care. So I'm just trying to get you guys to think outside the box a little bit with that. So this is a hour long, so we'll be done within the hour, whatever time that is for you guys. And the chat is super active. I love the chat. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great way to connect. And it is absolutely anonymous, and not something that it's very confidential, but this is recorded. So just be mindful of things that you share, making sure that you're comfortable with details that you're sharing, and support each other in that as much as you can. I think that's one of the other awesome parts about this. So feel free to use the chat and connect. If you don't want to use the chat, completely fine. However you want to engage in this and whatever you get out of this is completely fine. If you have any audio or visual issues, just refresh your browser if you're on a computer, or sign in and sign back out. That usually helps. Like to say that up front, because sometimes it happens, and just knowing that it's a pretty quick and simple fix. And I will go ahead and get started. And like I said, there's times that you guys are gonna I'm gonna kind of shout out to the chat and include you guys a lot in the chat. And then there's times where I'll be presenting. So you'll follow the flow with that, and it should be a good time. And I'm hoping that this is something that can get our Saturdays going all wherever we are, whatever time it is. So okay, it's a little bit about me. As I was telling you, I'm from North Carolina, in the United States. My name is Amanda, and I am a therapist in North Carolina. I specialize a lot in helping people manage anxiety, and that's what I do a lot in my clinical practice. And a lot of what I've studied in my education. And then I like to kind of tie it in and blend it in to this idea of building healthy self care practices, because that is something that I think people are interested in. And it's a really it's a culture of, hey, let's put some energy in taking care of ourselves. So how can we use that to help manage our anxiety, right? So kind of just blending those two things together. And that's really what this webinar is all about. This whole series is all about. In my practice, I practice cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what you need to know for that is it's all about your thoughts, feelings, and actions. So I could go on and on about that, but what the key parts that you need to know is that I'm really all about the way we think about things. And then if we can shift our thoughts, or if we can kind of tweak our thoughts a little bit, it should kind of give us a little bit of a different perspective, which makes us feel a little bit better, and then maybe be a little bit more motivated. So that is the concept that of cognitive behavioral therapy that I use in my practice, and you'll see that throughout the slides and presentation. And then solution focused therapy is, I can again go on for hours about that, but what you need to know is that we're focusing on solutions, right? So we could have a great conversation about why we don't practice enough self-care and explore that, go into the details of that. you know Great, awesome work, and a lot of self-exploration that you can learn from that. But we can also look at, hey, okay, instead of looking at why I don't practice self care, let's look at how I can practice self care. So it's just a different way of looking at things. I value both of those ways of approaching it, but solution focused is what we're looking at today, because I just feel like sometimes we want to come out with something tangible, right? We want to come out with something that, hey, I can try this. I can this is something I can do, and actually, physically see and do. But in that, I believe when we're creating solutions, the biggest piece to that is that you're the expert. Okay, you are the person who knows yourself the best. You are the expert in yourself and your body and your mind and your spirit and your healing. You know yourself the best. So we're going to work on, I can give you tools, and I can give you, some tips, and maybe you can find inspiration from other people, or someone can say, hey, this worked for me and it might work for you. But in the end of the day, nobody is going to tell you what you need to do. We want to pull that from you internally, right? You're the expert. So I'm not the expert in anybody in here. I'm the expert at me. I know a lot about cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've learned a lot about just different kinds of self care practices. But ultimately, I'm not the expert in anybody in here, and that's really important. So we're pulling from ourselves. We're going to lean on ourselves to guide us in that. So let's see. I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So this particular group in our is going to focus on physical self-care. So like I was saying that, there's different kind of ways you can approach self-care. And I think that in a wave of looking at so much emotional self-care, sometimes we don't attend to some of the other kinds of self-care that we have, like physical and social and all that. So we're just looking at it again, making ourselves think about things a little differently. And then also, I think that sometimes with physical self-care, when we think about physical stuff, we can also get hyper focused on, like, weight loss and exercise and those kinds of things, which are good things, but I want to expand that too, right? There's other aspects too. So looking at all of the different pieces of this. We're going to look at what is physical self-care, try to talk about some of your current physical needs, and then look at how you can get these needs met using self-care. Okay. All right. So with that being said, all right. So I want you guys to, in the chat, name, if you're comfortable with that, name 3 things that bring you joy right now. I do this in every one of my groupinars. It's a good kind of way to just get you started, get your mind going. This can be harder than it might sound. Like sometimes it's surprising that this is not an easy question. It's an easy, difficult question, difficult, easy question. So if you can do that, name 3 things that bring you joy right now. If you are having trouble with that, that's okay. It wouldn't be up here if it was a super simple question. Read the answers to other people's kind of, just recognize that as a place that you're in. Okay, no judge, no shame, anything like that. um, Cooking, nature, and family. My kids, the sunshine and coffee, strawberry milk. Yeah, every time, like I said, every time I read through these, I'm like, oh, I have strawberry milk. Friends, iced coffee, and music, nature, doing nice things for others, my family, music, and my cats, walks, ukulele, and laughing, sleeping, playing with my nieces, and talking to my family, singing, my family, and donuts. Yes, bettering my mental health. I love that. Strawberry milk and donuts. Those are things I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, but that's what I need. Looking at Dollhouse. To upcycle. Ooh, fun. I love upcycling stuff. That's like one of my favorite things ever. Cuddles and strawberries, fresh fruit, plants, sunshine, beach, and coffee, watching movies and online shopping, nature reading, and horseback riding. Yes, yes. I don't know. A little fun fact about me. I don't know if anybody knew if I talked about this before. My father is a artisan saddle craftsman that made. He's retired now, but he and my grandpa made saddles for horses and a little tack shop, repair shop, and I've had horses my whole life. Something I not forget, but I haven't shared. I don't think. Uh, so that's something that actually does bring me joy too. That I don't think about that often. Being able to enjoy those little things again, good. Yes, watching your son and your husband play. Yes, that's awesome. So this is where, like I said, this can be the most simple question ever, but as with lots of things in therapy, a lot of the things that we do in therapy or talk about in therapy can seem like really simple, but like it wouldn't be something that we're addressing if it wasn't something that also was kind of complex, right? So sometimes there's days and weeks or months or years where this is really hard to do, and I want to validate that, right? So while a lot of people come in here and have been here a while, so those people are in that mode or thinking about it, or maybe they're in a great place and they've got this ready to go and they're like, I love this, I love that. I also just want to acknowledge the fact that this is not that simple sometimes, and I've been there too, right? I've been there where I'm like, what do I enjoy? Like, what brings me joy? It's hard. So just know that that's okay. Um, yes, coffee will make my life more joyful right now. Yes, this is my brings me joy. A mug that my friend got me. It says self love club, and on the back it has club rules. It says, show yourself love, grace, and respect. Show others love, grace, and respect. And the most important love is the love you have for yourself. I just thought that was cute. She gave it to me because she's like, don't you run that self love club? I'm like, I guess this is a self love club. Anyway, awesome. So just kind of go with that mindset. A hot bath. Somebody said that too. Yep. So I love all the things that people are saying, but I'm sitting here thinking strawberry milk donuts and a hot bath. Boom. Yes, I had something I hadn't thought about all week, and I would love to go make that happen. So this is really fun to be able to do this, and a good way to kind of shift our mindset. Okay. All right, so we're going to take that. You guys can continue to talk, continue to share, and I'm going to go into the presentation part of this. So you guys, might not be up at the chat all the time, but I'll come back and have more opportunities to shout out and things like that. So continue to talk amongst yourselves, and I will be continuing to share. Oh, fall weather approaching. Yes. Oh, yes, it's awesome. All right, so a little bit of a review. I always kind of review the basics because you can't get enough of this. I have to remind myself of this sometimes, no matter how much I study this and everything, I still have to remind myself. What is self care? So, the biggest thing is that when you break it down, self care means taking care of yourself, right? Self dash care, taking care of yourself. So sometimes we get definitions in general, it's a little English lesson, connotation and denotation. So when you have a word or a phrase or a term, you start to associate lots of different things with it, right? Positive, negative. You build your own definition on top of the literal definition. And so we build these definitions based on our experiences, based on our thoughts, our feelings. And so sometimes we can layer stuff like with self care. We can say, oh, self care must be doing XYZ, right? Getting a massage or, going and getting my nails done or joining a gym or all those things. Those are all aspects of self-care, but they're not necessarily the definition of self-care. Okay, on the other hand, we can layer it a little bit with stuff that's like shame, right? So, oh, self-care is something that I'm supposed to do that I don't do. Self-care is something I don't have time for. So we create this extended kind of bigger definition of self-care. And when you just break it down and take out all of that extra stuff, you can get back down to the basics, which self care means taking care of yourself. Whether you're doing that at an expensive gym or whether you're doing that and you're excited about it or whether you feel like you don't feel like you do enough of it. All those things are extra, but self care itself means taking care of yourself. Self care is something that we do every single day, right? We practice it every day. And what happens is when we layer our definition and when we kind of build it up, if we've got this idea that we have to do these big, grand, expensive things, we forget that we don't take care of ourselves every day, when in reality we do. Some days more than others. Some days, bigger things, other things like that. But every single day, you do things to take care of yourself, down to blinking. I mean, right? Our body takes care of ourselves. We breathe and we blink without even thinking. So I want you to start looking at that and saying, okay, it's a layer, right? But at the very core of it, on those days where you got to bring it down to the very, very bottom, we do take care of ourselves every day. It's not one specific thing or activity. Again, I think so many people, myself included, will say self care is doing XYZ, right? Or exercising or dieting or eating right or, this or that. Those are different types of self-care. Those are things you can do for self-care, but self-care as a noun is or verb really, sorry, I'm trying to give an English lesson here. So it's a noun and a verb, right? So it's a thing you do, but it's also a concept of I'm taking care of myself, right? So that's important. And that is the core to all of the things that we talk about in here. So with that, I want to talk about the different types of self-care. So right, so you take care of yourself every day in lots of different ways. We have our overall health, right? Health is just a assessment of how we're doing, but that can be tied to anything, right? You hear about emotional, physical, social. Those are pretty common, and those are the ones that we'll cover, right? So your emotional health, physical health, social health. And then if you look down, some of you may resonate with certain categories of this and not. That's the personalized kind of part of it. There's other types of way of health too, right? Your spiritual health, financial health, intellectual health, or just, nurturing that side of your kind of need for brain stimulation and learning and material like that. Occupational health, jobs, right? Sometimes you can be like, everything's good in my life and my job, but my work life is hard, right? Nutritional health. So the list goes on and on and on. And the idea is that we want to look at what kinds of things we're dealing with and what kinds of needs we have. And then we want to look to try to craft our self-care to approach that, right? So if your idea of self-care is an expensive spa day, but what you need to work on is financial health, then those things don't necessarily align. So the idea is, how can I really take care of my need by finding out what self-care is going to be the best fit. Okay. So financial health self-care might be sitting down and budgeting, or, coming up with a plan to, save money or something like that. So that's the idea, is that we want to kind of match our needs with a different type of practice. And there's lots of different ways we can practice self-care. And then looking at our self care strengths. So we all have things that we do well, so we want to build upon them. Okay. This is a big part of solution focused therapy and learning about yourself as the expert. We have lived our lives, our whole life. So you've been with yourself your entire life and you've gotten through everything you've been through. So lean on that, right? How have you gotten through things in the past? What have you found out that works for you? What do you like? What has helped you? What has given you those tools that you need, and rely on those things, because generally, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and do something new, we a lot of times it's better to just say, wait, what's worked for me, right? Start there, right? And being real with yourself is going to help you make realistic and enjoyable goals. So being real about, hey, here's where I'm at, here's the energy I have, here's the capacity I have, here are the finances I have, making sure that whatever self-care plan you have makes sense within your life is going to make it more reasonable, and it's going to make you be able to kind of keep up with it and maintain some consistency. So the idea is kind of to work harder, not smart, or smarter, not harder, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're going to pull in from what reflecting on ourselves and what we've got, how we already take care of ourselves. So, what are your self care strengths? So, shout that out, right? So, how do you already take care of yourself? What are you good at doing? Somebody in here that somebody in here always says I'm good at skincare and drinking water, and I'm always like, there's those things that I'm not that great at. So we can easily say what we need to work on, but let's talk about what we do well. Okay. So again, simple question can be kind of difficult. So validating that. So it's not this is there's a little bit of work in this, but try your best to think, what are your self-care strengths? Wearing earrings, I love that. I love that. I love that answer. I love that because that's just I get it. Like that's just something that can definitely be a self care strength for you. Dental hygiene, budgeting, paying my bills. Yes, recognizing when I'm not doing great and being curious about that. Sleeping, keeping my room clean. Awesome, getting in daily walks, noticing and validating my own emotions. Awesome, reaching out to friends, walking, doing my dishes. Then you got one up on me because my kitchen is a hot mess right now. Cleanliness, hygiene, and laughter. Speaking with honesty, a mindful guru. That's a little reference to a little bit other things we talk about sometimes. Quit smoking and drink more water, maintaining hygiene. Yes, drinking water, reading each day. So, like I said, you might, when you're shouting out these things, everybody in here is like, oh my gosh, somebody does that. Somebody cleans their dishes. Somebody, like gets good sleep. It can make you feel like, oh, well, I don't do that. But like, it's really neat to see how much stuff that we do, that where we do take care of ourselves, right? Keeping your flat clean. I love that. The words I'm going to adopt. My apartment. I when I'm on it, and I haven't been on it lately. And I've been shaming myself. But you know what? This is where you don't need to shame yourself for stuff like that, right? Okay, so you guys can keep sharing. Yes, you guys can keep sharing. This is a little place where it's okay to toot our horns, because again, I think I think it's safe to say that everybody in here has maybe some things they want to work on for self-care. So why not let this be an open space to also say, hey, but like, where am I like really good at that, right? Like, where am I doing that? That's amazing. Like, shout it out. This is a safe space to be able to share those things. Okay. Love it. Setting aside time to build boundaries. Yes, that's amazing. That's awesome. Great. So keep sharing. And just keep communicating like that. And I'm going to go and we're going to talk about physical self-care now. Okay. All right. So physical self-care. So if self-care is taking care of ourselves, then physical self-care is how we take care of our physical needs. Okay. One thing I want I have to remind myself, physical extends to all parts of our body. It's not necessarily just how do I eat and how do I move and exercise. It's also lots of different things, right? How do I, you know, like taking care of my dental hygiene and my, skincare and all those kinds of things. I want you to like add those things in, right? So we have a little bit more to kind of pull from. And self care is generally when as a noun is generally reduced down to an activity or a product that can be used to relieve physical stress and fatigue. So this is important. The stress and fatigue or being tired. There's different ways that we can be tired. Okay. And physical tiredness is probably the most common where I'm just exhausted. My body is tired. I'm exhausted and I need to rest and I'm physically tired. Right. But there's also, we talked about this last time and we will continue to, emotional tiredness, social tiredness. Like, when you're tired, it's not always your body, right? It can be I'm tired mentally, I'm tired socially, I'm tired in different kinds of ways. So just recognizing that and realizing that physical stress and fatigue is is related to your physical body. My cat is meowing, and she'll probably come over here in a minute. So anyway, I'll let you see her when she does. Anyway, my little Kit Kat. Um, maybe she needs some water actually, or something to take care of her physical needs. um, I have to do that later. Yeah, water, food, those kinds of things are also physical needs. Sorry, I got distracted. And once we identify our physical needs, we can determine what we need to do to take care of them. So basically, physical self care is taking care of our physical body. Okay. So our physical needs are based on our personal experiences and our current state of physical health, right? So right now in this very moment in the seat that I'm sitting in, what's my body needing? Where am I at with that? And it can also be shaped by kind of an underlying thing, right? I can have a general underlying condition or general physical need that is kind of a baseline, but it's important to know that like, okay, while I might have something that's not my kind of long-term everyday need, also what do I need right now? Because there can be days where maybe even if you had a chronic physical condition, you have days where you're gonna be up and down, right? So it's important to assess both of those. It's important to say, where am I on a base level, but also where am I today, right? So I can generally need to work on sleep, but there might be a night where I get great sleep. Okay. Or maybe I get great sleep most of the time, but like last night I didn't. So it's important to kind of put all of those things into perspective and realize it's a blend between my overall physical needs and then where I'm at in this very moment today. Okay. So they can be shaped by medical conditions, physical fitness, nutritional health, all those kinds of things. So our needs can be shaped by lots of different things, but also our current experiences. And then we get our physical needs met by listening and paying attention to our bodies. Okay, so when we really just sit down and think, what does my body need right now? Right? Sometimes it's you need to get out and stretch and move. Sometimes it's you need to lay down and rest. Sometimes it's taking prescribed medicines or vitamins or going to the dentist or doing stretches or there's so many different things that you might need. Coffee. Yeah. Sometimes it's a food. A physical need might be I need to be nourished, right? I need a certain type of food, or maybe it's water, different things like that, right? So listening to your body and saying, wait, how am I? What is the state of my physical health? How can I get my physical stress and fatigue relieved, right? So, what physical symptoms are you currently experiencing? Again, let's work on right here, right now, today. Okay. So like, again, this is a practice of looking at different, like isolating it to right now. Okay. Right now. So, I need hugs. Great. That's an awesome answer. That's an awesome answer. So right now, right? So like I'm thinking, okay, you know, generally speaking, I might have this going on, but right now I need to probably just actually relax and like I just realized I probably need to sit back in my chair because sometimes when I'm sitting in my work in my chair at my desk, I sit forward and like literally I just realized I probably need to do that. I need to go to the bathroom. We've talked about this before. I don't know why, but so many times yes, going to the loo is self care. We've talked about this. I thought maybe sometimes the most interesting thing about these chats is that you might think you're the only person who's experienced something, and then you start talking about it, and they're like, "I do that too." I think it just comes from like like working and stuff like that, or like I think maybe from just elementary school where you have to wait till your bathroom break. But yes, I think that's hilarious. I have to remind myself that it's okay to go to the loo. Stop tensing on my muscles. Yes. Yes, my muscles. Yes, absolutely. Um, I think I'm carrying a lot of stress about work and dealing with my emotional state, and it's affecting me physically. Right. So even if right now in this very moment, just like someone said they're tensing their muscles, I was sitting forward and my back might hurt if I'm going to work all day in this chair. So is there anything small that right now you're like, oh, maybe I need to take a breath, or maybe I need to, stretch my arms or stand up, just those kinds of things, right? And definitely when you recognize those things, you can start to just kind of like do little things. Okay, that's physical self-care. That's physical self-care. Yes. Anyone else moving around and adjusting their seating position right now? Absolutely, absolutely, I just did, and that is physical self-care, right? Tensing my muscles. Oh my gosh, yes. I do that too. Even my dentist, I went to the dentist recently, which was also physical self-care. And they were and at this he said, "Do you like grind your teeth at night?" I'm like, "I don't grind my teeth at night, but like if I'm stressed, I like clench my teeth during the day." I've noticed that. Since he said that, I've been like, "Oh." So that's something I've noticed too. And it's just like a little bit like I've just started to be like, "Oh, okay." So these are some different physical needs you guys have talked about yours, and if you can think of other things too. But basically, some physical needs. There's many more than this, but movement, mobility, strength, endurance, stamina, energy, stability. Looking at heart health or your circulation, nourishment, vitamins, water, digestion. Um, uh, Hormonal balance, intimacy, sleep, and rest. Right. So if you look at this, yeah, taking my meds daily is self care, 100%. That's 100% self care, 100% physical self care. Absolutely. Um, yes, it does feel like a chore sometimes, but it is definitely like, physical self care. So when you do that, tell yourself this is self care. It's going to help you take care of yourself in other ways too. Um, yeah, taking your medication. And if you look at this list, like sometimes my physical needs are movement, and sometimes my physical need is rest, right? Sometimes my physical need is, you know, um, like, different things, right? Like intimacy. And sometimes it might be, I just need alone time, right? And so we just got to kind of look at different elements of this and recognize that, like, it's not all put into one box, and it ebbs and flows a lot. So here's some common barriers to getting our physical needs met, right? Some real talk things that just get in the way. Okay. Um, so physical and medical limitations. Okay. So there may just be, hey, I need to do this, but I can't, right? My friend recently broke her ankle and had ankle surgery. So if she's like, oh, I want to go exercise, like she might not be able to. So there's limitations to things that you just can't do, right? Um, there's inability to access resources, right? So sometimes in different areas, it could be a location kind of thing, not having access to good medical care or good grocery stores and things like that, or anything, those kinds of things can be a limitation. Then there's those learned patterns of behavior that get in the way, and that's self sabotage and self shame. And then the big one is the inability to control others. So if what you need involves another person, if they're not there for it, then you kind of get stuck, right? So at the end of the day, that's something that these are things you can learn to control some of them, but definitely self sabotage and self shame and the patterns of behavior. But some of these things are a little out of our control. And so a lot of what I talk about is accepting those things. And instead of saying, oh, okay, I can't fix that, being able to look at acceptance of it. So someone said, how do we take care of ourselves around our limitations? The big thing with that is, I say a lot of times acceptance is not agreement, right? So I can accept that this is where I'm at and this is what I have access to without agreeing with it, right? So I'd love to have, more time and money to go to the gym and energy, but I don't have that right now. So when you accept it, you can start to kind of like tweak your your vision of it and make it more approachable to like what you're doing right now, right? So it might be like right now I can't do what I'm trying to do, but I can do a smaller version, I can do a different version, right? Like, so meeting yourself where you are is really, really important. Okay. So, what are your current physical needs? Now, this is different than what are your physical symptoms, okay? So, our symptoms are, right, like my body is tense, right? Or I'm feeling tired, or I am emotionally maybe sad, or my ankles hurt. So like those are my physical symptoms. What are your needs? Does that make sense? So what do you need to kind of nurture that, right? And I think I was kind of glancing at the chat a little bit. Like I said, I can't read the chat the entire time. But I don't, sometimes this is like this touches on things that are like bigger than, bigger concepts or things for different people that are in specific situations or circumstances. And so when I was saying, what somebody said, what are your barriers to getting your needs met? And I said, oh, just accept them. That, you know, that's a concept that's great and awesome, but I want to highlight that that's not super easy by any means, and I don't want to seem insensitive in saying that. So I want to honor that, there's different situations that might be more difficult than that. And so anytime that you're in any webinar or anything like that, just know, especially in my webinars, that it's hard sometimes to address specific things. And so the best thing about all of these webinars is that all of us have access to a therapist, or we're getting connected to a therapist. So if any of this stuff is kind of like, whoa, hold on, that's too much, or that doesn't make sense, or that's not sitting well with me, or anything like that, bring that up to your therapist, and just know that that's not any of my intention to, not honor and validate everybody's personal experiences. Food and water. Current physical need is caffeine. Daily exercise and stretching. Yes. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Current, yes. All right. So we're going to keep going. And again, this is to get yourself, I love somebody said curious. These are things to get you curious, right? Helping you think about things. You may not have an end all be all solution, and these can be really, really, really complicated questions. Um, and they're big questions. Sometimes they're little, sometimes they're big, wherever we are in life. So just kind of recognize that. And it's okay if you don't have answers to all of this, right? It's just starting to get your mind thinking about what are my physical needs and how can I start getting them met. Okay. And so, how can I get them met? So, self care can help. Okay. So, when we look at our physical needs, what do we need to do? What do you need to do to help nurture your needs? These are some questions that you can ask yourself. Okay. And again, these are not always going to be the end all be all answer because, if I had a magic answer for things and this was going to be a kind of webinar that was going to just, be a end all be all cure all, like, I don't think that exists. So, you know, I don't expect anybody to come out of here and say, "Oh, okay, I answered these questions and everything is great." But if you sort of can sort of integrate that in and think through that and pull little pieces of this out, if any of this helps you, that's great. If any of it just makes you kind of think in a different way. Um, what do you need to do to nurture your needs? Like asking yourself that, right? Like, what do I'm the expert? What do I need to do to nurture my needs? How can you incorporate this into your daily life? Okay. What has helped you get your physical needs met in the past? Okay. There's a big um, piece of that that says whatever has helped me in the past is something to try in the present. It doesn't always work because we're not in the same situation. We're not in the same condition. We're all, it's not, again, not a fix all. But if you look at, hey, when I've gone through this before, what has helped me? Right? If you can build upon that, that's going to be really helpful. Okay. You can build upon the things that have worked for you in the past, as long as they're currently integrated into your physical situation, right? So again, I'm recognizing more and more as we're talking in the chat that sometimes we're in different states than we might have been in the past. So again, this can be a question that is it helps, but it can also be a question that says, well, what if we're different now? And that's okay too, right? That's okay too. But looking at, is there anything that's helped you in the past? And if you can pull forward from it, it's going to be helpful. That work harder, not smarter. And then ask yourself, what do I need to do to take care of myself? Since you know yourself better than anybody else, right? You know yourself better than anybody else. So, the end of the day, you come here and you're asking me what do I need to do to take care of myself, and the answer is, let me ask you, what do you need to do to take care of yourself? Okay. Let's see the chat. Someone said, "What do you mean building on it?" Sometimes I'm just talking and don't even have that. Like, okay, so building on that, I guess would mean so. Basically, you're looking to gather information about things that have worked for you, things that you know about yourself. Take all of that stuff and say, "Is there anything I can take forward and build on?" Meaning, like, bring that back in, right? So sometimes I'll forget, I think about this all the time. I get so mad at myself in the afternoon for being tired after work or having that afternoon slump, and then I realize that I've had that since I was little. So I used to take naps after school and had no shame about it because I would take a quick nap and I would get up and do my schoolwork. For some reason, as an adult, taking a nap after work feels like I'm not supposed to do that. Like, that's something wrong with me. I shouldn't do that. That's lazy. That's whatever. Well, I look back and I'm like, okay, but hold on a minute. Like, naps for me have been something that actually have been really effective. So maybe it's okay for me to try that again, right? So it's kind of leaning back into some of those things, right? So that's just something to consider for yourself and think about. Is there anything I can kind of do that maybe I've done before that's been helpful? Here are some examples of physical self care. Okay. These are just examples. And again, everybody's needs are different, everybody's situation is different. So, this is a very kind of blanket group in our webinar. So, if some of this is hitting you, great, that's awesome. But think also about your own personal situations and what your physical self care would look like. So, attending to medical concerns, right? Man, going to the dentist, I have been putting that off, right? And it's really not. I was like, but that's self care, right? So, making those doctor's appointments, or going to routine checkups, making sure that you're taking your medication. If you're supposed to take vitamins or something like that, attending to those medical concerns. When something comes up, do it. You got, when you need to use the loo, if you're able to do it. Those kinds of things. Like I need something, I need to do it, and taking care of that and taking those steps. Taking any kind of prescribed medication or vitamins or supplements can be self care. Getting adequate nutrition and hydration. I say adequate because I believe that there's no prescriptive way for people to eat that's global. So it's not, I can't, if we're working one on one, then I might be able to address and attend to your questions and needs in a very much more specific way. But for the purpose of a large group setting, adequate nutrition. What is adequate for you, right? Does that mean you need to eat more? Does that mean that you need to eat less? Does that mean that you need to, do this or do that? So whatever's adequate for you. And hydration, right? Making sure that you're hydrated and taking good care of yourself and your nutrition. Increasing your movement and activity can be one way to get your needs met. Again, not all of these are you don't have to do all of these at one time because sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you need something else. Proper sleep hygiene is an example of physical self care. Allowing time for healing, rest, and recovery without judging. Yes, taking those sick days without judging, right? Taking time to recover, those kinds of things. Not somebody just said not guilting myself for not being able to socialize all the time, and then setting those healthy physical physical boundaries can also be how you can get your needs met. So this is just a list of some ideas. Again, this is a super personalized experience. Okay, and so I want you. The idea is, hey, how can I take this information and use this for my own personal life? What stuff fits, right? And then what stuff do I want to kind of add in? And then what stuff maybe it didn't, maybe that wasn't something that fit for me. But what kinds of things can I get out of this? Okay. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to attend to your physical needs? Okay. Again, honoring that, we're in different places and different situations and have different specific things. So, everybody's journey is going to be different. But how are you going to try to use self care to attend to some of these physical needs that we've talked about today? Let go of the FOMO. Yes. Set healthy boundaries. Say no to more people. Say no to other people and say yes to myself. I'm physically tired and drained when I've been inwardly wrestling sometimes. Take a nap, go for a walk, and drink more water. Okay. Um, Actually scheduling time. Gonna use mouthwash. Yes. I bought some mouthwash because I mean after going to the dentist, I've got like all of the I've got my dental routine on lock. Right. But like next week, somebody remind me to brush my teeth. Feel very guilty taking care of my physical self. Yes. Yes. So when you're okay, so like this is sort of stop wasting time scrolling. Um so one thing is that, and I encourage you to keep attending my group webinars because some of them address a lot of this, and we talk a lot about self shame in one of them too. But a big thing is that it's so common for people to feel like, oh, I feel guilty or selfish for spending time taking care of myself. But then what happens is you end up getting in a position where you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't spend enough time taking care of myself and I need to work on that, right? So it's a very all or none swing. You go from I'm being selfish to I'm not doing enough to take care of myself, and that's a problem, and I need to go to therapy and I need to talk through these kinds of things, right? So recognizing that that's the swing and recognizing that we're somewhere in the middle, right? So taking care of yourself is not putting yourself above everyone else and first. I mean, you're not like, oh, excuse me, kids, I'm not going to feed you because I have to do my own thing or take care. Like, it's not, we're not looking at this in that kind of way where we're looking at it being this selfish thing. Self care is not selfish, right? And I think when you're actually practicing self care in this kind of way, especially, you're not going to neglect other things because then you're not taking care of yourself. Because self care is taking care of yourself. So self care would also be knowing when you're kind of overdoing it or when you need to, step back and take care of other things in your life too, right? So then, yes, because if you feel bad about neglecting yourself, well then you'll go into this wave of I got to do all these things to take care of myself, and then you'll feel selfish about that. So you'll stop doing it. And then you'll go back and then you'll be like, no, but now I'm not taking care of myself, but now I'm doing too much, but now I'm not, but now I'm doing too much. And I think just knowing that that disconnect is there, very common, give yourself the ability to sort of be somewhere in the middle, right? So, I mean, I think we always feel like we should be doing something else. When we're not taking care of ourselves, we feel like we should be. When we are taking care of ourselves, we feel like we shouldn't be. We always feel like we should be doing something else. So honoring what you're doing in the moment and realizing that that's, yeah, part of it. Should stop shooting on yourself. If I love that phrase. It just helps. At least, stop shooting on myself, right? Okay, because if I'm doing good things, I should be doing. If I'm out going for if I'm at the gym, I should be at home doing something else. If I'm doing at home doing something else, I should be at the gym. Like, what is that? Where do I get a break? What am I? What do I should? What should I do? Right? So allowing yourself to be like, okay, right now in this moment, this is what I'm doing, and right, and stop shitting on yourself because it's a never ending battle. Because the minute that you do what you think you should do, you'll be like, no, I should be doing something else. It's not really a good solution, right? So come back to the self-care, self-shame, what Groupinar that I have. If you see that on the Groupinar list, and that we will address that in a little bit greater detail. Yes. So, how to make self care a lifestyle. So we're wrapping up this Groupinar and this part of the series. You want to be mindful of how you already take care of yourself, right? And looking for those little tiny ways to integrate it. Reminding yourself, hey, I do take care of myself, even if it's not I'm not where I want to be. I do take care of myself, right? Setting that self care intention, creating and looking for those self care moments of times that you take care of yourself, and then saying it out loud, right? This is self care. So when you do those things, when you do the dishes, when you brush your teeth, when you take your medication, remind yourself, feed that into your brain that this is self care. It's feeding new thoughts, okay? Feeding thoughts into your brain to kind of counter some of the icky negative thoughts that we have floating around in there too. And then try to find those things that bring you joy and remember that you are the expert in yourself and your healing. Okay. So lean on yourself for that. Okay. And then, yeah, how are you guys going to practice self care this week? So typically, and the September just got wonky because it's a weird schedule in my practice with a bunch of stuff going on in my with people in school and my schedule. So September's weird. But generally it's always on Wednesdays. And it will be at the same time each Wednesday. So October will be definitely getting us all kind of set up and started. So otherwise in September, just look at it's kind of a hodgepodge. So just watch the Groupinar list of schedules. So yes, so if you register for the Groupinar, you should get a recording. So if you can't attend because of, I didn't share the slides, did I? I had it up here. I did. I'll share the slides right now. Maybe they're in here. I don't know why it's not letting me share the slides. Well, you can get the slides on my website, selfcare101.net. I thought that I shared them up here, but I'm not seeing that I'm able to. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's see. Maybe I can do this. Oh, there is one. Okay, hopefully. Sorry, I'm going to do this really quick so you guys can download it. If it'll let me. My computer's being funky. But basically, yeah, I don't know. Can't share the slides right now for whatever reason. But you can go to my website, selfcare101.net, and you can get all of the slides to this and all the slides to all my other presentations. And then, like I said, if you register, you can come back. You can watch the recording, and you can always go and look at the slides before on there too. Sorry, I can't get that one up right now. Yes, selfcare101.net. There are the slides somebody posted, or maybe I posted, I'm not sure, but there you go. But yeah, so sorry, the chat was going a little wonky. But yeah, so definitely come back. I'm gonna, let's see, as long as my computer's not freezing up on me. This is the, I knew it might be freezing up a little bit. Okay. So this is the way the series flows. So again, this a little bit different this month just because of this. But social self care is what we're going to talk about next, and then we're going to do a resource roundup, and then we're going to go back to the basics and flow that out. Okay. So you'll get the recordings in an email if you registered for the Groupinar. So if you come to it, you'll get the recording, and then also if you just register. So if you're not able to make it during the time, still register and it will send that to you. Okay. Cool. Awesome. And again, I should have said this at the beginning because everybody is in such different places. If any of this stuff was, first of all, if any of this stuff was helpful, please talk to your therapist. Okay. Because I love it when people come in and say, oh my gosh, I was in Joy's Groupinar and this blah, blah, blah. It gives us stuff to talk about. So if it was helpful and you want to expand on that, talk to your therapist. Okay. If something was like not comfortable or didn't sit well with you or it was triggering, because again, all of us are in so many different places in our journey, you can talk to your therapist about that as well. That's the beauty of this. It's the beauty of having that connection. So because most of you are either connected with or are getting connected with a therapist, so that in combination with these Groupinars, I think can be very, very helpful. And it's okay if something in here didn't sit well with you or was triggering. That's completely fine, because that gives you an opportunity. You need to know yourself enough to say, hey, if something isn't sitting well with me, I don't want to just blindly subscribe to that. So definitely communicate that with your therapist. And yeah, hopefully some of this was helpful for you guys. And I will see you, I believe I'm on here again Wednesday. And then, like I said, September is weird. And then October, it'll be straight out a little bit more consistent. So thanks for being flexible with me on that. All right. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Have a really happy, wonderful Saturday. Great weekend, wherever you are. And I will see you guys soon. Bye, y'all.